Good morning, everyone. We are continuing from the next part, that is the third session in post-structuralism deconstruction, Peter Barry. From Peter Barry, we are starting our this third session, structuralism and post-structuralism, some practical differences. Now we saw the essential features of as a theory, as a movement, how does it look like, and now we will see the practical differences when these two theories approach a literary text. The kind of differences that we can see, that is the kind of practical differences when you approach a literary text. So an initial problem here is that post-structuralism often claims that it is more an attitude of mind than a practical method of criticism. See, post-structuralism, it often claims, it is the post-structuralism often claims that it is more an attitude of mind than a practical method of criticism. What must be the reason that they say like that or others think like that? Or why does this claim occur? It's an attitude of mind. I told you this is about swimming against, it's almost like equivalent to swimming against the strong current. That means you have to take risk. You are not supposed to stick on to what is already available. In that case, it is an attitude of mind. Definitely, it is going to be an attitude of mind because the reason is that you have to take risks, you have to take challenges, you have to face criticism. Sometimes you are reading maybe ruthlessly thrown out of the academic discussions. So this is obviously a stand that you have to take with all your courage, audacity. So this is more of an attitude of mind than a practical method of criticism. See, many aspects combine together to give form, give a kind of shape to what you call the deconstructive analysis or deconstruction of a text as such. The way we can do that just with the analysis or etymological search of etymological understanding of a word we have already come across. So this is in a sense quite true, but perhaps no more true of post-structuralism than of any other critical orientation. Now, Barry is talking about many other schools of criticism where he just wants us to think whether all others are really practically a kind of well established system as such. Obviously, they have their own theories, they have their own established thoughts, schools of thought, and with the many proponents, everything is there. But what about the kind of practical side, or are you all, or are these proponents capable of bringing the complete effect or impact of such theories into the topmost level or to the perfect level? That is the question put forth by Peter Barry here. That is, in one sense, every other critical orientation also is of the kind of attitude of mind. We will take with some example, we will talk about this with certain examples. Marxist or feminist or even liberal humanist. Criticism we called a method. What is the importance of being, or what is the relevance of it being a method? Method means you have set standards and set rules or tenets for something. We will come across in the next session, we will come across this part that what do a post-structuralist critic do? What does a post-structuralist critic do? In that case, you have a set of rules there, and if you label yourself to be a post-structuralist, you are in no way supposed to stay away from observing the rules, analyzing a text in an entirely different way. No, you have to be in and inside the set rules and standards given by such a method. So this is the question, or this is the point at which this question becomes very relevant. Take a Marxist, take a feminist. Can you all say that they all follow the method as such given by these theories, or theories of the method as per their school of criticism, or the movement as such tells, do all stick on to their school of criticism? That is, just think about a feminist. A person labels that, a person says or claims that I'm a feminist. And sometimes or always we talk about this. They talk about all these ideas, ideologies, but once it comes to their matter of concern, once it comes to their own life, most of their ideas, ideologies, they throw away for the sake of convenience. Or according to the situation, they take a diplomatic stand. The same way you talk about Marxism, not just as a political theory, but apart from that, Marxism, you can talk about Marxism as something entirely different, as a school of thought. In that case, Marxist criticism or Marxism, how many people can hold or stick on to all the methods or standards given by such a theory? That's why we have such criticism. We talk about sometimes when certain people holding the ideology, when they behave like what you say, they make problems or they behave like certain bourgeois. They take when sometimes they take bourgeois stand. We talk about why they are calling themselves to be Marxist and what is the kind of method or what is the kind of theory they stick on to. Hope you get the point. Okay, so this is the way, in that sense, any theory till date in the world cannot be told about sticking on to certain standards as given by them. So, obviously, by formulating a theory, you have certain set standards, certain rules, certain tenets. We will come across that with this theory as well. But this is the question he talks about, and then this claim that if you cannot make a claim that this is not a practical method of criticism, more than that, it is an attitude of mind. You cannot blame. You cannot or blame, or it is not a negative remark on anything, or is this theory as such. Hope the idea is clear. Now, only in the loosest way, surely, since none of this provides anything like a step-by-step procedure. What is the step-by-step procedure? Normally, we prefer that in scientific theory, scientific methods of data analysis. In literature, we do not actually stick on to what you call step-by-step analysis procedure. You do not talk about steps. You talk about introduction, then loose analysis, then the conclusion. Okay, that's obviously a following of certain categorization. If you write an essay, it's better, it's good that you have an introductory part, then an analysis part. If you can conclude the argument points, that's fine. But you cannot always stick on to or claim that I always have to follow this. But we're talking not just about criticism but about theory. Theory has its own way and method as such. In that case, they say that, or Barry claims here that none of these provide anything like a step-by-step procedure for analyzing literary works. Obviously, when you are analyzing a literary work, it is beyond our chaining, or we cannot always say that my cognition talks about this work in this way. So you have to stick on to this standard. No, another person, and that is the value, that is the most obvious point of deconstruction, of post-structuralism as such, They say that you cannot always claim that this is my reading, this is my analysis, this is my data, and you have to read this text in this way only. There is no point of claiming in this way, or that cannot be validated after the advent of post-structuralism or deconstruction as a literary theory. Right. So, in that way, none of these theories, not just post-structuralism and deconstruction. Why post-structuralism and deconstruction? When you talk about that and its analytical method, we have a tendency, or we may have a tendency, to take the provision to read a text in any way you want to, or that can be taken as something liberating without having any control. But that is not the case, which is already told to you. It's not, it's a kind of textual republicanism we mean, not an unlicensed way of freedom. Your interpretation without having anything to do with the text, you're not supposed to go for an analysis. Instead, definitely you are reading a text by fixing one center. We are reading a literary text, a male-centered text. If you are still taking that male hero as the center, your reading is same with the traditionally established reading. But now onwards, you are trying to look it at from the point of view of the suffering woman character, so that many problems in the dialogues, the stance, the attitude of the hero can be noted down. In that case, even the hero may turn to be a villain or a good for nothing fellow. Okay, so this is the way your analysis changes. But in every case, there are different centers. There is no one particular center. That doesn't mean that your reading can be anything and everything. There is no such a mention in at any point of deconstruction as a literary analytical method. Okay, so this is none of these actually provide anything like a step-by-step analysis or procedure for analyzing literary works. Feminism. You take first wave feminism is entirely different from second wave feminism. And obviously, okay, you stick on to first wave feminism, that analysis procedures. Even then you can see a lot of loopholes. You talk about the woman rights, right for vote, right for education. But at the same time, there are a lot of women folk in different corners of the world who were without even basic rights as human rights. Human rights. After holding human rights, you have to talk about education and voting rights, many other aspects of life. Here, this is the problem. The step-by-step procedure or a perfect procedure you cannot claim in the case of any theory. Not just in the case of deconstruction, but where we are liable to, or sometimes we may mistake this freedom of interpretation as something very liberating, very a kind of liberating procedure without having any uh, center in the sense, if you use again, you are going against this concept of deconstruction, but without having any substantiate an argument point where we can substantiate. Yes, I come up with such an interpretation because, yeah, I view from the point of view of this woman character. I try to read it from her angle. The text till date told about the main point of view, the patriarchal point of view, where you can talk about only the woman character to be good for nothing, sinful, problematic, her decision to be very problematic and challenging. But there is another reading possible, that's all. So in that case, not just deconstruction, post-structuralism, but every other theory is of the same kind. They also cannot always stick on to some step-by-step procedure, especially while dealing with literary works. Because literary works, you know how fluid and flexible its analysis part may be. My reading can be entirely different from your reading. Your reading can be entirely different from your friend's reading. Okay, yeah. All they offer is an orientation towards a characteristic central issue, that is, towards issues of class, gender, and personal morality. All they offer. What other theories like feminism, Marxism, many other schools of criticism, it's an orientation towards characteristic central issue. Feminism as such talks about the women crisis problems in general. But even in that case, what about the double marginalization? When a woman from Western country, a first world nation, comes to the forefront or comes for claiming her rights, she doesn't have to think about the denial of human right maybe. Or she doesn't have the suffering regarding her color. She doesn't have to suffer the exploitation because of her being white, because she's already white and she doesn't have to suffer the racial issues. But think about a woman from an African country or an Asian continent, wherever it may be, they have the problems for being women as well as because of their being black or belonging to some black race. So racial issues as such they suffer. So women problem even is not the same everywhere. Women are the more privileged. Even during those days, were more privileged. Without having any problem in the family, they can go for getting educated. They could go for getting professional. So this problem is not the same everywhere. So the issues when they raise, they can have a common picture. Issues of class, gender, personal morality. Some persons face the problem just because of their personal morality. They may have the freedom to go. Just think about a familial background where your parents are okay, fine with you going for getting educated. But the girl herself feels that no, I'm supposed to get married at an age because my friends did. Our friends do go for like such a kind of option. So I don't want to. So you are not making use of the provision allotted for you. In that case also, you can have certain issues. Some persons, some women do want to go for getting educated. They want to go for professional life, but their class, their familial system, their society, that doesn't permit them. If that is the case, the woman issues having is of a different kind. So even every theory is of the same. Every theory is without having a step-by-step analysis possible. There is no possibility as such to go for a step-by-step analysis. Okay, because you are dealing with the literary text, you are dealing with the human lives. That is entirely different from one person to other. It differs. So you cannot set standard on behalf of certain theories and tell that yes, my theory says like this. So these are the only problems that can occur. Just think about first wave feminism when it discussed the problems of women. The racial issues never came into their mind because they were from the first world nations where they didn't have anything, they didn't know anything about the racial crisis regarding the exploitation on the grounds of racial belonging. That problem, to discuss that problem, you had to travel to third wave feminism. Third wave feminism started discussing. It began to be more, see, it began to talk about certain other issues apart from the exploitation on behalf of your biological sex or gender. Third wave feminism is entirely different. See, now we have LGBTQ. It's more, it tries to be more inclusive. Tries to talk about certain areas which were not there as concern for other waves of the feminism. So in the beginning, the women folk who came to the forefront claiming the rights were already privileged. Their problems actually got curtailed to the problem of voting rights and property rights mainly. They didn't have to fight for the basic human rights, at least a consideration for being human beings. Women, without having any consideration to be taken as sinful, your body to be marked as sinful, all these problems were there, and the women from other nations were suffering that already. But without our suffering, that doesn't come to our mindset, maybe. But later, at a point, that double marginalization, the concept began to be taken seriously, so that they began to deal with that as part of third wave feminism. Hope that idea of double marginalization is clear. Actually, it's part of feminist criticism. I do not want to go to the details. Later, I will get to. Okay. And a body of work which constitutes a repertoire of examples, what then seems to be the characteristic of post-structuralism as a critical method. The post-structuralist literary critic is engaged in the task of deconstructing the text. In the task of deconstructing. Actually, this process is given the name deconstruction, which can roughly be defined as applied post-structuralism. Please note it down. Post-structuralism, deconstruction. Wait. Post-structuralism and deconstruction. How these are related, we have to think about that. So the portion, the reading, the text itself gives the title like post-structuralism and deconstruction. So how these two are related, we have to think. Actually, deconstruction can be roughly defined as applied post-structuralism. If you take feminism as a theory, if you are analyzing at literary text using the tenets of feminism, You do not have another separate term for that. Yeah, feminist analysis of the text. If you are using the Marxist tenets of Marxist criticism, again you do not have to have another term. You do not have another term. It's Marxian analysis of the text. But in the case of post-structuralism as a theory, if you are making use of the tenets, the rules or the methods, the system of that, if you are analyzing the theory, if you are analyzing a literary work using this theory, the procedure can be termed as deconstruction. Okay, so this is the way it is often referred to as reading against the grain. Very important. Reading against the grain. What is that? Reading against the grain. It's very easy for us to understand because we all eat rice. It's our staple food, so that we know how from the paddy seed we take the grain. We do not take the paddy seed as such and take it as food. It's not edible. That outer cover is not edible. We remove the outer cover and we take the grain for as it is the edible part of that particular seed. So this is the concept, that is reading against the grain. Grain in that sense means the essential core of the particular seed. In the same way, till date, for every text, we used it to decide or we used it to get a kind of already decided grain. If it is a male-centered movie, if it is a male-centered text, you have that available readings highlighting the hero, justifying his stance at every point, whenever and wherever we can locate his stand to be very problematic, very inhumane. Even then, sometimes there may be a godly attribute. There may be some other political or some other privileges already given to such a hero, so that whatever and whenever, whichever he does, you are trying to support that as per the established readings already available in the traditional method of analysis approaching a text. But here you are trying to read against that particular grain. What do you mean by that grain then? In the case of a hero-centered or male-centered movie or text in a literary work, the grain is going to be the hero. But now you are reading against that grain. Now you are trying to read the text from the point of view of the woman character or a person who is deprived of the human rights, so that you can see every stand, every step made by the hero to be very problematic. The hero can be an utter villain. Hero, the kind of value you attach with his works, his stand, everything changes with a kind of deconstructive reading, the post-structuralist, using the post-structuralist tenets, post-structuralist theories of the post-structuralist points of analysis. Reading the text against itself. What is that? Again, another way of putting this, reading against the grain. Reading the text against itself, because we used to think that a male-centered text itself is the hero. We used to think like that. So here now we are going to read the text against itself. No longer the hero is taken to be the hero. The woman's point of view, the suffering person's point of view, the deprived characters, they come to the forefront and start talking for themselves. So that you are reading the text against itself, the kind of self we used to think or attach with the text. No longer that is needed. So with the purpose of knowing the text as it cannot know itself, I am going to get a very beautiful example for knowing the text as it cannot know itself. That sentence, let us take a film example, or you hope you know about this MPD, multiple personality disorder. Do you have an idea about multiple personality disorder? It's not a fanciful disease. Actually it's a psychiatric disorder. Well, you might have come across the characterization or the theme coming in different movies. Definitely in Malayalam, multiple personality disorder is portrayed by the movie Manichitrathal. In Tamil, it's Onion. Both are very famous movies. Hope at least one of those you might have watched at least one of those. And what happens with the characters who are affected with this particular disease. You know the way that character of Ganga and Nagavali, those they are portrayed. Knowing the text as it cannot know itself. What is happening with the text? Actually, the same way Ganga doesn't know she has another personality in her when she is normal. When she turns out to be Nagavali, she is purely Nagavali. She doesn't know that her body is that of Ganga. So that disorder is very problematic. And in Onion movie, you know how very pacified a character like Ambi turns to be Romo, very postmodern type character. Then very cruel character like Onion, who are not cruel actually, but who is fighting for justice in an entirely different way. But all these characters, when you look at, they do not know about themselves. Each of the character, each of the personality is unaware of other personalities existing in them. And who actually tries to reveal that character, actually they cannot do it themselves. They cannot identify, they cannot say that, yeah, I have another personality. Instead, what happens is a doctor comes and identifies the disorder or reveals about such a change in them. The possible change, possible other characters or multi persons existing in them. In both cases, in that movie, Manichita Taru movie, that character enacted by Mohanlal comes and reveals about the possible other personality in this person, Ganga. As such, she is Ganga. It's by her existing personality, she is Ganga. But later, at some point, she turns out to be Nagavali. It's very powerful, who doesn't have any characteristic or any conscious level of Ganga at all. Same with the Onion movie. So this particular sentence can be described at great length just using these examples. That is, knowing the text. The text may be this person who is affected with a multiple personality disorder, as it cannot know itself. So, some other persons are taking the task of knowing the text, because you cannot do it your own. The person cannot do it, cannot know the person's self, the other selves, so that another person. So, the task of a deconstructive critic is this. You are trying to know the text as it cannot know itself. The text is at a surface level, it's very unified without having any problems. You get the idea. At a surface level, the hero is hero itself. No problem you can identify all of a sudden. But if you look deep into each sentence, each paragraph, you get an entirely different picture of the scene. Okay, yes, so that's the text as it cannot know itself. And these are, Terry Eagleton's definition. Here he has taken it from some text from Terry Eagleton, one of the major critics. And a way of describing this would be to say that deconstructive reading uncovers the unconscious rather than the conscious dimension of the text. See, conscious, subconscious, unconscious, the three strata of human mind as per the traditional psychoanalysis we have already come across. So, to take something from the conscious of a human being, it's very simple. It's very simple to take that, because it's already available. You just have, you are very conscious and you can recollect, you can talk about the events that happened in the morning, events that are going on. There is no effort on the part of person is even needed. It's just about taking things from the conscious level. But what about the unconscious dimension? If you have to even subconscious things to take that, it's very difficult. Sometimes you try to explain about your dreams to some of your friends, you come across this difficulty. We talk about latent content, manifest content, all those, let it be there. But how sometimes you forget about the forget about certain parts of your dream, and sometimes yeah, so I saw the dream, I had that kind of a dream, a part of that, oh, I just lost it. Actually, even if you try hard, you can take it from subconscious, but unconscious, taking things from unconscious is very difficult. It's very difficult. It's not that as easy as you think. Just think and think and think. You may get things from subconscious. Oh, I knew the name of the person. Oof. You may think till evening and you may recollect. You're taking it from subconscious maybe. But unconscious, actually nothing dies in the unconscious. Everything from your tiny memorial maybe. The moment from which you try identifying things, try identifying your surroundings, your unconscious starts catching or capturing things well. But the problem is, it's not that as easy as you think to avail or take the things out of the unconscious. That's why the hypnotism techniques, all those make use of this unconscious strata of your mind. The unconscious strata. So now you know unconscious, conscious. Taking things from unconscious is not that easy. So, reading, the constructive reading, uncovers the unconscious rather than conscious dimensions of the text. It definitely means to get a deconstructed reading. Things are not that simple. You have to take effort, you have to take much pain to get such a different or very entirely wondering meaning of a text for which an established reading, a very conscious level reading is already established, already available. Okay, so you're trying to uncover the unconscious dimension rather than the conscious of the text. Every surface level reading is making use of the conscious dimension of the text only. You do not make use of the unconscious, but if you are ready to read and read and read, if you are ready to spend time on that, if you are ready to check out each and every meaning of just a paragraph, you may be able to uncover this unconscious. Sometimes this one word is enough. You know how a drop out does another different meaning of the particular word may change the whole of the text. The whole face of the text was changed just with the analysis of the text or reading of the text with this particular change in meaning. Dropout can be a person who discontinues a course. It can also be a person who thinks and acts differently. So now it's the unconscious meaning of the word so that you can make use of the same to read it in an entirely different manner. Okay? Yes. All the things which its overt textuality glosses over or fails to recognize. What do I mean by overt textuality? Overt is the opposite of covert. Overt. Covert means covered way. But overt textuality means what is already available at a conscious level for a text. It glosses off. What do I mean by this process of glossing over something? During examination time, you always gloss over your text. You never have time. If you are having next day examination the next day, you just try from here and there. You just gloss over the pages for your own convenience or your own kind of satisfaction. But even then, you do not get the kind of satisfaction as you expect or prefer like. The reason is like this. That is a glossing over. Normally, our overt analysis of the text, it glosses over the text. Its reading is just glossing over. All our readings are just glossing over. All of us try a glossing over of every literary text. If you are not a deconstructive reader, if you are not a deconstructive critic, you are just satisfied with what is available by the surface level, convenient reading. Very convenient, you're very comfortable with that readings. Because you don't have to take the risk of checking out for the second meaning in the dictionary. You don't know. If you're going for looking at a bird, the first word available, first meaning may be always the kind of meaning that we always take for granted, or we always know from, we already know from different literary contexts or from our daily life conversation. Maybe drop out the meaning we didn't write down and learn. But at some point we come across the meaning for the word in that way. But most of us, none of us actually didn't talk about, we didn't know about such another meaning was possible with such a word. In that case, this over textuality glossing over something is over. That is over. And now we are trying to recognize something covered in the text, which is covered, which is underlying. We have to take effort to take it out. To get that different meaning, you are taking effort and pain. Okay? Yes. This repressed unconscious within language might be sensed. For instance, this is repressed unconscious. See that? Repressed unconscious. Very important. Repressed unconscious. I told a sentence, just gave you a sentence that is, actually it's from psychoanalysis. Nothing dies in the unconscious. All those are not coming out always. Your childhood memories, even childhood sorrows, certain unfulfilled wishes. I wanted a cycle at age 6. I didn't get it. At a later point, I may get a bicycle, I may get a scooter, I may get a car. But that kind of a repressed wish, unfulfilled thought, all those are there in the repressed part of your unconscious. So it's available only in a repressed manner. Repressed manner. So, this is the way that repressed unconscious within language might be sensed. For instance, in the example used earlier, when we said that the word gust is cognate with that has the same original root as the word host. Hope I don't have to explain this again. How gust can turn to be host is the potential double aspect of a gust. Yeah, in the beginning, you are welcoming the person. Afternoon, the person doesn't show any sign of leaving. You start getting irritated. Then evening, the person talks about the plan to stay. So this gust is not always positive meaning. You see, in Indian context, we talk about Aditi Devo Bhava. That is our traditional sense of welcoming guest and paying all due respect to them. If you read it only at that level, there is no other possible meaning. This potential double meaning is already there. Possible change from welcome to unwelcome, or hostess, which is already connected with the enemy. Welcome or unwelcome, or changing from one to another, one to the other. This notion of hostility then is like the repressed unconscious of the word. That is there, but not available at a surface level, or at ease it's not available. You have to go in search of the etymology of the term to get the notion of hostility which is already implied in it. A person who is willing to work only, willing to take risk, or willing to take effort only can do that. Otherwise, it's not going to be, yeah, guest as a meaning I know already. It's going to be a person who comes to our house, who is supposed to be extended with a warm welcome, especially in an Indian context when you talk in terms of your traditional sense of welcoming guest. As per our the saying, like Aditi Devo Bhava, means you're keeping, you are paying all due respect to your guests. Okay, so repressed unconscious, to take that out is very important as well as very effort. If you have to take effort, otherwise it will not be available. That's all. And again, and the process of deconstruction in revealing the unconscious of the text might draw upon such disciplines as etymology. That's another discipline actually. An area of study. Etymology is a discipline, area of study which talks about which is in search of the root of the text. You are studying about the roots of certain words, not text, very sorry. About the root of word, how did it arise, how did it originate. You are in search of, that's a branch of study. Any term that has its suffix to be this ecology, it talks about the branch of study. Zoology, botany, zoology, biology. It talks about the particular branch of study, ecology. In that sense, etymology is the study of the origin of the words. And there is no guarantee that just by going in search of the etymology of the words, you can deconstruct a text. For one word, it may be available. Many other words in particular in a text, you may not get any other reading, any other different reading, a deconstructed reading just by searching at the etymological sense of the term. You have to find out some other means for that. So in this way, another well-known definition of deconstructive reading is Barbara Johnson's The Critical Difference. The critical difference. What is that? Deconstruction is not synonymous with the destruction. You know, in no way destroying the text. It's not destruction of the text. I gave the metaphor for the home, the house, the building, were some of the old elements we kept intact. We made use of the old walls, old basement. But when you look at from the outside, the text is entirely new. Sorry, the home, the house, the building is entirely new. You cannot even trace a single thing as part of that. But something is already, the elements are there. You're not completely destroying it. That's why I discussed the demolition that happened in recent time with certain buildings, like we just witnessed, the Kerala society just witnessed that. What happened with those buildings? That's completely destroyed. It's about destruction. But if you renovate, actually renovation, you talk about, and you take the metaphor of home, the construction, you talk, sometimes we go for renovating a house. That is a proper one, that may be one of the proper metaphors that talk about, that may get you the proper sense for deconstruction procedure. It's not synonymous with the destruction. In no way it's destruction. You're not completely erasing the characters from the text. You're not changing their stance, the deeds they do. The stance they take at different points. You're not changing that. You're not destroying the text. You're not destructing the text. Destruction means you don't keep any of the characters there as such. After that, there is no character as such. No. You're reading it from a different angle. And the way you renovate a home, the old elements are still there. It is in fact much closer to the original meaning of the word analysis, which etymologically means to undo. Actually, deconstruction, etymology, the original meaning is analysis. Analysis etymologically means to undo. What do you mean by undoing? You take a word file, you select a particular part of the text, you give the font color to be, you make the font color in red. But before closing the file, if you want, you can go back to the former part. If you want, you can press the undo button so that you can retrieve the file. The old element, the text, the whole file as such is not changed. The old file is there. Sometimes you make the color, the font is changed. Sometimes you font style, font size, everything can be changed. And if you don't want the change, you can undo that. In any case, you're not completely destroying, you're not completely deleting the file and creating something new. You're using the old file itself. You're analyzing in a way it's undoing. The deconstruction of a text does not proceed by random doubt or arbitrary subversion. But another important point, the deconstruction of a text. Yeah, anyway, such a provision is there that you can analyze a text in the way you want to. It's a kind of freedom. Anyway, they declare about the death of the author. So let me try reading the text in an entirely different way. For that purpose, if you are taking kind of arbitrary subversion and random on behalf of certain random doubt, without having anything to stick on to, see etymology, it's very authentic. Establish a branch of study. You can definitely go in search of the etymology of words. But without that, I say that today onwards, we talk about the arbitrariness of linguistic sign. Yeah, today onwards, I'm going to call my font a pen. In that kind of a subversion and coming up with a different reading, it doesn't hold any validity. It doesn't have any, it may not get any appreciation. So, it should be a very careful task. It is about careful teasing out of warring forces of signification. Actually, these disunified elements are at war, and these are the elements or forces of signification within the text. That those were already there, but we didn't notice it down. Now it is the task of a deconstructive critic to tease out. It's a careful teasing out. Carefully you are finding out the barring forces of signification within the text. Okay, so that it's not an arbitrary subversion, but in a subversion, you're just harassing the text without having anything to do of your own, without having any valid point to talk about. You just say that I would like to come up with an entirely different reading of the text. That will not be approved in any case. You cannot say that I'm trying to you are trying to contribute to the area of deconstruction. So I just wanted to try reading this text in this way or that way. No, will not be possible. It's an arbitrary subversion. But you say that I read this particular book in the way, this particular text, I'm not going to take that dropout as a meaning, as very negative as it was or it has been given till date. But I would like to read this text making use of the second other meaning which is already established, already there. You are not randomly choosing it without having any point to stick on to. You can show that why I did read this kind of a, why I did go for such a reading. But why I have come up with such a reading for this text. And if you have an opposition on the part of the people who want to read the text with keeping the meaning of dropout to be a person who drops discontinues a course, you can come up with a dictionary and show them that yeah, this meaning is available here. So this is why I read it in this way. Hope it's clear. It's about carefully teaching. You have to be a person with the knowledge. You should be a person with an attitude to take effort and pain to know the meanings, new meanings, the unknown meanings of the text. Okay, meanings of the words, the etymology. You should be in search of. Otherwise, from who will tell you about this kind of a possibility? This is our taking effort, but in a way which has its own establishment, its own state. There should be a valid point that should be you can come up with. Otherwise, it's about an arbitrary subversion. Anyway, death of the author is declared. So that let me read it in the way I would like to. A person who didn't test the poem prescribed till date going to take this for granted and okay, fine, it's going to be a post structuralist reading. Teacher will not be able to mark it to be zero or to be invalid because the still is there. You can, in no way you can do that. Definitely, yes. I read this text. I came up with kind of a reading because this kind of a meaning is possible. This etymology gives a different meaning, so that your point will be validated. Otherwise, it's problematic. Okay, so this is the way you get it from this text, Barbara Johnson, the critical difference. The definitions of deconstruction was available at a different in different ways in the text, but from different persons. We came across Terry Eagleton's description. We will get Derrida's on description. In the next class, we will talk about Derrida's on description, which is very important. As we know, he is one of the major prominent critics of deconstruction. Okay, so that's all with this way. Thank you.